Underneath the sand, an alien creature has just been born, and it's hungry. This thing is able to pull anyone under the sand as long as their skin is touching the beach in some way. And if this poor thing wants to survive, it needs to find a way to keep eating by any means necessary. It's hard to blame something for trying to survive. Wouldn't you do the same? But nonetheless, I'm gonna show you how you can survive this creature's wrath without getting in the way of its insatiable appetite. But first, how did this amazingly mysterious alien get to the beach in the first place? Well, this whole thing kicks off with these irresponsible youngsters throwing a beach party. There's a cameraman in the mix, catching every wild moment on film, dancing, kissing, and having one hell of a time. A dude named Mitch demands everyone toss their phones in a bag. You know, so there's no chance of scandalous pics leaking onto the World Wide Web. Then there comes these two lads, Vance and Gilbert, with a ball of gooey stuff, saying they fished it out of the water. Naturally, everyone's disgusted, but they don't give it much thought. And suddenly, we're transported to the next morning. The whole gang's out cold. This girl named Kaylee's hanging with Mitch, while 4 of their pals, Chanda, Jonah, Ronnie, and Vance, are chilling in a car nearby. Kaylee's the first to get up, and she's taking in the scene when she spots a bird on the shore struggling to fly. She thinks it's stuck. But nope, that bird gets sucked right into the sand. Kaylee's shocked and starts sounding the alarm about not stepping on the beach. But when she turns around, there's her friend Marcia sprawled out in her birthday suit on a beach, taking a step onto the sand. Her feet get caught and she's well and truly stuck. Everyone's horrified. But Vance tries a rescue attempt while everyone's begging him not to. But he's a stubborn one, so he takes a dive too. Just before reaching Marcia, he also gets stuck and now they're both prisoners of the sand. Marcia vanishes into thin air as that sand swallows her whole. Vance is screaming in agony, pleading Ronnie to save him. As Vance tries to raise his head, it's like his skin and his eyes decided to part ways. Ronnie's got terror written all over her face as Vance goes down like a ship in distress. The gang starts brainstorming, trying to figure out how to escape. But when they reach for their phones, they realize those are stashed in the car's trunk. Jonah tries to fire up the car, but wouldn't you know it, the battery's dead. So here they are, well and truly stranded on this infernal beach. Okay, first mistake, don't mess with a big slimy ball that looks like it came straight out of Mass Effect. If you see an alien gooey looking ball, it's definitely not a good idea to bring it back to the party. But if you see a red looking button beside the name of our channel, be sure to click on that. Now these kids were stoned out of their minds, which is good, don't get me wrong. But what I have a problem with is why they didn't think of throwing it back in the water. Or being a bunch of drunk 20-year-olds, I'd assume at least one of them would have had the idea of throwing it in the fire. Like Vance, who strikes me as a guy to do just that. He's dumb and tries to be the center of attention. And as we get to see later, he also acts on impulse. But let's be honest, once Marcia put her feet on the sand, it was game over for her. As for Vance, he needed to die. Why? Well, when you wake up after a devilish night, if someone screamed at you to not touch the sand, would you listen to them or assume that they're also drunk? Kaylee's Celine Dion-inspired song wouldn't tune right in with the rest of the group until they actually see the problem with the sand. So for them to realize that underneath the sand, there's a living being with thoughts and feelings and an open-minded appetite, both Marcia and Vance are now what I call sacrificial lambs. They need to die to serve as a wake-up call for the others. Now, let's see what the rest of the guys could have done better. Since the phones are in the trunk, we need to get those back and call for help. In their eyes, the sand eats everyone that stands on the surface. That means the only way not to die is to not step a foot on the sand. If you want to call for help, the easiest thing you can do is to use the surfboard as a platform to stand on to open the trunk. That's a no-brainer here. Another way to open the trunk safely would be to simply lay down on the trunk from the back seat, insert the key, and then push yourself up on the fender on the back. Turn the key and just slightly pop the trunk and let it rest without it locking again. Since the car has a small lip spoiler on the trunk, you can then go back into the back seat, reach for that, and pull it open. One person can hold it open while the other reaches around the trunk to get the phones. This is probably the safest way to do it, as you never have to leave the car itself. The second option, assuming the phones have somehow run out of battery, is to use the surfboards as a bridge. You can flip the board upside down so that the fins are facing up. Sure, this is risky seeing as the board won't be completely flat, but at least you have a method of grabbing the board back to place it down again without getting your hands near the sand. So what do you need to do here? Well, the idea is to get to the lifeguard tower where the others are completely safe. The tower is easily equipped with the most quality items to stand on. The shutters are held on by hinges with screws. With enough torque and wiggling, you can easily get all 4 huge shutters. Even the gangplank ramp to the tower is removable. Chances are that the flooring can be ripped up too. And don't forget that the tower probably has some kind of speaker or a siren system and lights to signal with, so this could be used to signal for help even without leaving its safety. Kaylee goes over to the deck and extends her hand over the sand. What do you know? It's like these beautiful tendrils are desperate to touch her palm, rising from beneath the sand. Even old Mitch is blown away seeing this. But then Gilbert wakes up as he's stuck in a trash can. He's not too pleased, cursing out his friends who put him in a barrel the night before. His friends tell him not to move, and Gilbert finds out that Marcia and Vince are 6 feet under the sand, so he heeds the advice. Mitch and Kaylee slip away inside, and Jonah stares at them menacingly. You see, Kaylee and Jonah, they used to be a thing, but things got a bit complicated. Jonah's now cozying up to Chanda, which leaves Kaylee with a wounded heart. Chanda's doing her best to console Jonah, saying that Kaylee's finally found herself a new flame. But then, hours crawl by, and not a soul shows up in their rescue. Kaylee manages to dig up a tube of sunscreen, tossing it out to her friends, cause why not? Kaylee's wondering how in the hell this whole thing happened. They look around, and it hits them like a lightning bolt. Every other soul who partied on that beach is now part of the sand. Suddenly, Kaylee spots that gooey ball from the night before, sitting by the water. And what do you know? It's hatched. They put 2 and 2 together, thinking it's some sort of critter's egg that lives under the sand, and makes a meal out of dumbasses. Given that it just hatched yesterday, that means this creature must be an infant, and it needs a lot of food. Okay, I love how even though a couple of people die right in front of them, Jonah's wondering about Kaylee's body count. Like 2 of your friends were eaten alive just now, and you're thinking about your ex being with someone else? Unlike Jonah, you've gotta get your head straight. Now, let's just see how we can save the 300-pound guy over here. This guy is stuck in a barrel. If this barrel is big enough, or he was small enough, I would have told him to stick his head inside the barrel and then flip so that he could roll over to the tower and survive. Now, that'd be pretty funny, wouldn't it? In all seriousness, you need to find out how big of an area this creature can cover. And no, not the fat guy, the one underneath the sand. Like if there's an area where the sand doesn't eat you alive, you need to go over there. And like I said, there are a lot of materials on the tower, and since we know the creature only attracts flesh, you can try an experiment by getting a small portion of your blood onto something and throwing it in 4 different directions, just to see if any of them are swallowed by the creature. If not, that's where we need to go using the surfboards or any material we can use to walk on. Kaylee devises a plan to figure out how large the creature is. She gets sausages from the storage and starts throwing them around the beach to see how big the creature is. Gilbert sees a bird being sucked into the sand and freaks out. He finally realizes everything his friends are saying is true. The others don't like the idea of throwing sausages around, saying that it is their only source of food. But Kaylee doesn't stop. The last sausage she throws doesn't get sucked in, and the group celebrates, feeling that there might be a way out. But they still have no way to reach that far in the sand. Jonah gets in the back of their car and picks up 2 surfboards. He keeps one on the sand and jumps on top of it. Everyone is delighted when he doesn't sink. Jonah then makes his way to a bench nearby. Just when he is about to step on it, the surfboard moves by itself. Jonah almost falls to the ground, and the string from inside the sand gets into his stomach. He manages to save himself, but his stomach is hurt. He finds a bag full of food supplies on the bench. He accidentally drops a banana on the ground, but it doesn't sink. Jonah hovers his hand over the ground and figures out that the banana fell on the part where they lit the bonfire last night. So the creature cannot come out through fire or ash. When he stands, we see the wounds on his stomach get worse, and pus starting to come out of it. He starts to freak out, and Kaylee calms him down, telling him to go through the bag. He passes sodas and water that he found in the bag to everyone while still whimpering in pain. What a wuss. His wounds get worse by the second. Jonah then tries passing a can to Mitch, but the pouches of pus on his stomach start to break. He cries in pain and lies down on the bench. The surfboards on the ground are still moving, which means the creature is growing and developing. Kaylee notices the strings attaching to the car's tires, trying to move it. They don't have much time before the creature develops big enough to swallow the whole car. Okay, we've probably found the creature's weakness, fire and ash. But our first lesson in our Dumbass 101 class is that throwing the whole sausage away is so genius, even the devil couldn't come up with that. But what do you expect? She's a blonde. I definitely think they could have cut up the hot dogs in halves so they have more tries in order to fully understand the range of the monster. There were 3 to 4 sausages in the bag, chop them up in 3 parts, and now you've got 12. But instead of throwing them in one direction, throw them in all 4, including the area behind the tower. Throw a piece in the short range, mid-range, and in long range. Once you know which area is safe and which one isn't, you could make your way towards that by spraying out the ash in your path and using the banana to check if it's working against the creature, allowing you to move. You can use that tactic to help the others escape. Or you could leave them and save your own life. What would you do? Chanda and Ronnie try getting the phones from the trunk. Ronnie offers to get on top of the hood and try to open it. She asks Chanda to give the letter she has written in a diary to her mother in case she dies, and steps on the hood. She is about to open it, but Kaylee stops her, saying that the trunk will open wide and make her fall into the sand. Kaylee gives them a rescue hook so Ronnie can hold on to it. She finally manages to open the trunk. Just then, a patrol car drives to the beach and honks at the group. This startles Ronnie. She accidentally closes the trunk again. Her fingers get stuck on it, making her cry in pain. Mitch and Kaylee yell at the car to help them. Inside the car is a beach patrol officer. He assumes that the group is on drugs and doesn't take them seriously. Despite Kaylee yelling at him to stay inside his car, the man steps out of it. The group is surprised when he walks freely on the beach. A close-up of his feet shows us that the strings cannot attach to his shoes. The officer goes near Jonah and is disgusted by his wounds. He completely ignores his pleas to help him, still assuming that the group is on drugs. He goes to talk to Kaylee and insults her and Mitch for being reckless teenagers. He asks Kaylee to step out and gets angry when she disagrees. He threatens to use his pepper spray on them, but when he reaches to get it, he accidentally drops his keys on the sand. The man then gets stuck while trying to pick them up. The officer finally understands that the group wasn't lying, but cannot do anything now. Kaylee advises him to use the pepper spray on the strings that are catching him. The spray works, and he manages to free his hand, but half of his arm is gone. He screams in pain, and the strings pull him down again. After witnessing this, Kaylee takes his pepper spray and leaves him to die. Okay, now here's a lesson. Never tell the truth. When the officer comes over, what do you think he'll believe the most?
Hey, there's a monster underneath the sand that is eating people alive!
Or,
Hey, do not step out of the car. There are mines all over this place.
even if he doesn't buy into your lie, he'll still call for backup, simply because landmines are a bigger threat to him than a bunch of drunkheads saying there's a monster. Now, once he calls for backup, explain to him how 2 of your friends died here, and your friends on the table and the car are seriously injured and need to be airlifted to a hospital. This will make your lie seem a lot more convincing and give him even more reasons to trust you. Plus, this gets you and your friends out of there, as you need to go to the hospital fast, so the monster is entirely left for the authorities to deal with. But on the flip side, if the cop does get out of his car, you can see that his boots are letting him walk freely over the sand. The bottom of sheriff boots, also known as the outsole, is typically made of leather or rubber. Even if we're gonna let the sheriff die, which is a brilliant idea, don't get me wrong, we need to get his boots and the key. How, you ask? Well, when the sheriff was walking around all over the place, he didn't fall into the sand. That means the creature does not like the material that his boots are made of, so it's most likely that it would eat all of his body except his feet, which means, realistically, his boots and feet should have stayed above the ground. If one of you manages to get the boots and the key using that rescue hook from earlier, you can wear them and get to the sheriff's car, drive it back to the tower, then to the others and pick up all of them and drive the hell out of here. The fact that this incredible creature in the beginning could only reach inches from the ground, but a couple of hours later was able to reach up to 2 feet, means that it can soon even go beyond that. Not only does this thing grow in intelligence pretty quickly, but it also grows in speed. Honestly, it seems like this thing is pretty superior to humans in every way. Humans are useless for pretty much the first 12 years of their life, while this thing went through puberty in an hour. Now, Mitch plans to use the sandals and towels and wrap them on his feet to run through the sand and get to the officer's car. He believes since the officer's shoes resisted the creature, the sandals would too. Chanda throws the towel at Mitch, but the railing breaks when he tries to catch it. Mitch falls onto the sand and is brutally eaten by the creature. It's tragic, I guess. Kaylee has finally had enough of this. She sees the railing move on the ground and gets an idea. She breaks a part of the railing again and hands it to Chanda, planning to use it as a bridge later. She then gets on the deck and manages to jump on the car. As soon as she lands, Kaylee punches Chanda in the face for sleeping with her boyfriend. Chanda doesn't mind, and the two help Ronnie get her fingers out of the trunk. Jonah, who has been on the bench the whole time, tells Kaylee that he loves her. Kaylee then tells them of her plan. She wants to use the railing as a bridge to get to Jonah, and then bring everyone to the officer's car. Chanda gets the railing and places it on the sand. She walks carefully and manages to reach Jonah. Kaylee does the same. The three are safely at the bench when Ronnie walks towards them. However, the strings latch onto her injured hand, making her fall. Kaylee tries saving her with the help of pepper spray, and it works, but not for long. The creature grabs Ronnie into the sand. Chanda then wraps her feet with a towel and a bag and runs to the car. She successfully gets on its hood before the strings can catch her. Gilbert cheers to celebrate, but not long after, his bin starts shaking. His body is caught by the edge of the trash can, and the blood attracts the creature. The girls ask him to hold on, but the creature has gotten inside the bin and is grabbing onto his legs. Okay. Really, Chanda? After you've seen the monster literally devour 6 to 8 people, that's the hardest you can throw? Useless! I don't know why they rushed it here. Their incompetence got Mitch killed. And seriously, Kaylee, almost all of your friends are dead. You might be next, and your first idea is to slap the girl that can actually help you escape? In my opinion, Chanda should have thrown Kaylee out in the sand so that there are no more idiots in her team. And this isn't Assassin's Creed, so you can't just walk swiftly over a narrow piece of railing. Even if you're gonna try this, only one person crossing the rail should be enough. Instead of all 3 of them going over at once, just one of them would have been enough. It was pretty clear from the start that there was no way Gilbert would survive, so all you can do is just watch him die. Gilbert starts vomiting blood. Soon, several large pairs of limbs grab him and drag him to the ground. The limbs then shake the car and make Chanda fall on the hood. She falls unconscious as Kaylee yells at her to wake up. Several hours pass, and now it is nighttime. Chanda finally regains consciousness. Kaylee is still at the bench with an injured Jonah. Chanda discovers a raft on top of the officer's car and uses it to get on the bench. The 3 successfully get to the raft and to the vehicle. Chanda and Jonah are inside the car, but before Kaylee can come in, a massive glowing tentacle attacks her. The creature has grown to its full potential now. Kaylee gets on top of the car, where she finds a gas can. She uses it to light the tentacle on fire and gets inside the car. Everything goes silent as Kaylee and Chanda realize that Jonah has died from his injuries. The girls hug each other and cry, mourning the loss of their mutual lover. It is now the following morning. A man knocks on the car's windows, waking up the girls. They see that the monster is gone now, and they can finally walk on the sand. The two walk across the sand together, traumatized, as the man calls for an ambulance. But on the other hand, the creature finally reveals itself as an enormous jellyfish and is heading towards Santa Monica Pier to make new friends and probably find its mommy. This monster got a meal and reduced carbon emissions for planet Earth. A happy ending. But who do you think is the real villain of the movie? Let us know below. Like and subscribe, or I'll be in your dreams tonight. Have a good night, my friends.